Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. I'm a life and parenting coach. And I, as you know, am really interested in internal family systems, in healing, in talking about motherhood and the strain of motherhood. And in that vein, I have recently met Dr. Angele Close, and she is a clinical psychologist. She coaches women on motherhood. She teaches mindfulness, and she is also a therapist in the internal family systems model. And she wrote a book called Unburdening Motherhood, a guide to breaking cycles, healing trauma, and becoming a self-led mom. And I cannot tell you how much I love this book. I got an advance copy of the book. It won't be out until January 27th, 2026. So if you're listening this in real time, like while the episode is released, you might have to wait a little while, but you can pre-order it. But when I read it, my heart burst. I was like, this is such a good book for moms to understand what is going on for you. Why are you so stressed? Why is it so overwhelming? How come you're working so hard and trying to do it all right, and yet you still feel overwhelmed, stressed, and show up as the mom that you don't want to be? In this conversation with Angele, we talk a lot about this myth of the good mother. We talk about this process called matrescence, where you are in the act of becoming a mom and what that does to you, and how to release yourself from the unrealistic standards that society has put up in terms of motherhood and what it's like to be a mom in this world, and how to release yourself from some of that pressure so that you can tap into your own internal wisdom and guidance and intuition and really show up as the calm mama that you want to be. I felt like reading Angele's book was a book that I would have really benefited from earlier in my parenting. I benefited from it reading it even now because it really helped put some words and some understanding to my experience as a mom and put it into context. So we are going to have two different interviews. The first one is going to be all about this unburdening motherhood, talking about the myth of a good mother, the demands of motherhood, and how to free yourself from some of that. And then the second episode, which will come out next week, is going to be about kind of all these different internal noises and voices that we have in our head as moms that prevent us from being the calm mom that we want to be, and how to tap into that internal calm, that internal self, that self-led energy, and show up in a different way, and how to relate to our parts in a way that's really loving and soothing and calm. These two episodes are really incredible, and I'm really excited to share them with you. Now, we kind of jump right in the conversation. So if you haven't listened to my 3-part series I did on internal family systems in July of 2025, I highly recommend you go back and listen to those either now before you listen to this episode or afterwards if you're inspired and you want to learn more about internal family systems. Highly recommend you go back and listen to those episodes. Those would be episodes 183, 184, and 185. All right, here is Dr. Angele Close and our conversation about unburdening motherhood. I'm Darlene.
Hi, Darlene. Angele.
Angele. I was like, I have no idea what this name is going to be. Angele.
Yeah, most people don't. So you're not alone.
Same. Darlene is not an easy name.
What kind of things do you get? Because people.
Oh, Darlene. Mostly Darlene.
Darlene.
Yeah. Darlene.
Darlene? Okay.
Darlene, of course. But mostly Darlene.
Darlene.
They swap the Y.
You know.
I mean, you are like Dr. Angele Close. I mean, it's like the best name ever if it was just Angel. It's very sweet. Let's go. Let's do it. I am welcoming Dr. Angele Close to the podcast, and we're going to talk all about motherhood, the myths of motherhood, the myths of the good mother, and what it's like to be a mom in this modern world. So welcome, Dr. Angele Close, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Darlene. Happy to be here.
Good. Sometimes we do backstory on here, but I want to like do so much talking about this topic. But I wondered if you would just introduce like how you got into this particular topic about motherhood, and your book is titled Unburdening Motherhood. Maybe just a little bit of story about kind of what it was like for you and when you realized, eek, maybe
Hmm.
I'm needing support here or help here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a therapist for 20 years now. So I had my children while I was going through graduate school. And so when I was kind of finished my education in clinical psychology, I had three little ones. I mean, although completely exhausting, I was fortunate that, having them was fairly smooth. Early motherhood seemed fairly smooth. Like I got feedback from people that were like, "Oh, you're pretty good at this." So I kind of was riding it out for quite a while. Um, and then things really came to a head when my kids got a little older. And so they were always cute, but suddenly they were like, I don't know, 8. My eldest was 7 or 8, 6, and like 4. So I have three kids, they're teenagers now, but had them all really close together. And I guess parenting got really, really tough. One of my kids is neurodiverse. And that's my oldest. So that was really difficult to traditional ways of parenting just weren't really working. I think I had this assumption that we had a lot more control over our children than we really do. And when they were this age, that I had a part of me that just was like, well, they should know better by now. They should listen. They should. So I started to get this inner dialogue and really struggle with it. Just wasn't smooth anymore. It was actually really hard. They had a lot of big feelings. I had a lot of big feelings. And then I became really self-critical because I am this, at the time I was an emotion focused therapist. So I thought, why am I not handling their emotions so well? I was this mindfulness meditation teacher, and I thought, well, I'm not feeling calm all the time. Like I'm losing my mind. And so I became really hard on myself in that phase of parenting. And then I went and I got all like the parenting books, and that was sort of when the journey started for me, as a lot of people do. Is it was my own personal journey of parenting. And through that I realized, gosh, moms are just not really talking about what I want them to be talking about, right? Am I alone in this? Is it just me that feels like I'm flailing here and struggling in these ways? And so that sort of started the journey of me, seeking out to get the help and support. And I sort of followed the thread and found the word matrescence, which was huge. And then I discovered internal family systems, which was just really helpful to give me something to do with what inside felt like a storm. It just felt like, yeah, it was like in a battle that I just didn't really know how to find the calm, the inner peace that I thought I could.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me here. And then, so that was, several years ago. And through that journey, because internal family systems and other facets of healing were so needed for me, first off, I realized in the crux of parenting, I needed to fix myself and heal myself now, because my kids needed me to be that sturdy leader, to be more regulated, to know what's happening. So I was very, eager to figure it out for myself. And then I did get some traction. I did learn a lot of amazing tools and practices that were so helpful for me. And very quickly was like, I need to tell all moms about this, because why do mothers not all know what matrescence is? And understanding our parts was so healing for me and empowering for me. So that's why I wrote the book.
Ah, it's so relatable for me personally because I did not have an easy like early childhood raising kids when they were little.
Yeah.
And but similar in that when you have a kid whose behavior is out of bounds or in, something you can't control and you're trying to do all of the techniques and you're still finding that they're not their children still misbehave. What do
Mhm.
you make that mean? Like I would be reactive to that behavior, to like hitting, kicking, spitting, punching, all that. And
Mhm.
then especially under 6, they're really physical. So it was like a lot of
Yeah.
physical behavior, getting in trouble at preschool, da 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 da.
Hmm.
And then making that mean like, oh, I must be doing something wrong. Something's wrong with me. Especially because then I would rage at the behavior. And that was shocking because that's not my identity at all, is like a reactive, like, intense. I'm not. But then I was, and I was like, I don't understand what this is, who this is. I didn't have the language of internal family systems. And those listening, we're going to link to the show notes, like previous episodes I've done where I teach it and talk about it. And we're going to talk about it as well. But I didn't have any language for it, except I knew I needed to get help and heal and show up as a parent. I knew I wasn't being the parent I wanted to be, and there was a
Yeah.
disconnect. And wherever that, for all of us, when that happens, it's like changing our mindset around motherhood and parenting and behavior for sure is a big piece. And then also then that internal healing as well.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right.
so that's kind of what we're talking about here. It's like, I think in motherhood, what we want to talk about today is that these like thoughts and beliefs around mothering and parenting, like that you can control your children or whatever it is, and that if there's anything gone wrong, it's your fault.
Hmm.
That there's some room to dispel those myths and those beliefs and heal kind of our impression of what we're supposed to act like or what the expectations are. And then also then still take responsibility for our own internal work. It's like I
I
can
love.
definitely be like,
Hmm.
fuck all those ideas about motherhood. It doesn't matter. And that can be true. But if I'm still not internally well and I'm
Hmm.
reactive towards my kids, that's also not helpful. So it's like doing both. And
Yeah.
so let's start with, you mentioned matrescence and this concept that was really helpful for you. And I think it'll be really helpful for anyone listening to understand kind of like what the hell happens when you become a mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So share with us
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Learning the word matrescence, I'd already been a mom for 9 years. And I went down, it was during COVID, and I went in my basement to get on the treadmill to try and stay sane for my 20 minutes to, handle this as we all were kind of locked down. And I just clicked on this podcast that was called the Happy Mama Movement podcast. And I was like, I need to be a happy mama. I'm not. Click. And I learned this word that was conceptualized in the 70s by an anthropologist called Dana Raphael. She's actually also the person who identified the role of a doula, and she was interested in what happens to women when they become mothers, that is there a process? What happens? Do they change? And in fact, the researchers who do, and since her, there have been others, who have looked at this concept, and it turns out mothers go through a significant, profound transformation of identity, similar to an adolescence, just like emotionally, physically, hormonally, spiritually. Our roles, our sense of our career also can shift. So it changes every aspect of our life. And some people will say it's only, the first few years of motherhood. That's not been my experience. I mean, the fact that we have this phrase called empty nest is to identify that when we launch our children into the world, that's also a significant. So to me, it's lifelong. I think our
Mm.
relationship to our children and our identity are forever tied in ways, unique to each person. But it's kind of this umbrella term that reflects multiple changes.
Yeah.
So one of the things what my book really took to heart, what I kind of focused in on, because for me what was most relevant was the fact that we have these myths in our culture and society of what it means to be a good mom. So through matrescence, you can't not be impacted because through your life you have absorbed these indirectly, and sometimes it's very directly, what it means to be a good mom.
Mm.
And that will definitely come up in your journey, whatever unique journey you have. And then the second piece was that through motherhood, we anything that we haven't kind of healed or dealt with in our childhoods are going to get reactivated. So matrescence addresses that. It acknowledged that that's what can happen for moms, and so for me that those two are really connected, and that's what I personally needed to focus the most on for myself. And yeah, that's what I focus on in my book. But as I tell moms about matrescence, what resonates for them might be different. Some moms might say, "Oh, I don't really get the myths, but I know that ever since I had my kid, my mother-in-law used to have a certain relationship and now we don't." So
Yeah.
that's also part of matrescence. So to me, having that language is so validating. And I know when I learned that term, it just kind of dropped at least a good portion of the kind of self-blame and the shame that I was carrying because I thought it was just me who wasn't good enough at juggling my work with being a mom. And I just kind of felt like I was failing everywhere. And I didn't understand all the inner emotional experiences I was having and outward reactions, like you had mentioned, darlin. I
Mhm.
had my own, and it didn't make sense to me. So it really helps, I think, moms make sense
Yeah.
and that they can not turn against themselves. Like it, yeah.
Yeah, think about it like when you're in
Mhm.
adolescence, you know, it's this transition between childhood and adulthood,
Mhm.
and it takes into account the transition that there's a change, right?
Yeah.
And, I am in the midst of becoming menopausal, postmenopausal, right? And so they used to call it the change. And it's
Uh-huh.
so interesting that, it is a period of time. I feel like I'm in like at this point, like a reverse adolescence, like because my hormones are all weird and
Yeah.
I'm self conscious and insecure in a new way. And I don't know who I am. And I also, for me, it's coming at the same time as emptiness, like,
Yeah.
end of the family years is how I've been defining this period that I was in the family years for 20 years and now I'm not in the family years. Like my kids are going to go create their own families and
Mm.
this version of it is over and that's okay and they're young adults now. So but I'm also wrestling and moving through that. And the same thing happened to me as becoming a mom and I was an adoptive mom. So I come to this parenting journey, where the first myth you talked about is like a good mom gets pregnant easily and naturally, and quote unquote
Yeah.
naturally, you wrote.
Yeah.
And that was like the begin. I mean, I had such a traumatic childhood. And then I go into motherhood, and I always felt like I came from the back door.
Mm.
And moms will swap war stories. Like our version of war stories is pregnancy and birth and having newborns. And as someone who didn't have those war stories, I was like set up like old wounds. I don't belong. I don't fit. I'm not like everybody else. Things don't happen for me the way they do for other people. I mean, just all of it.
Yeah.
And it was like there. And then I had these kids who come from trauma because they were from Russian orphanages. And
Okay.
the whole beginning was just a mind fuck. And I did not know what to do with any of it. And that's how I came to this work. But I think I thought, I didn't have the word matrescence. I just thought about it as motherhood,
Hmm.
like this period of time where I'm in my mothering years
Hmm.
or I'm in my motherhood time. And
Hmm.
I think it's helpful for women to recognize you have changed and that's okay. You have split priorities and that's going to create conflict within you. Like I want to take care of myself, but I also want to take care of my kids. I want to have a career, but I also want to be present for them. Like
Yeah.
that conflict is hard. It's like I want
Hmm.
to be a little kid and I want to be an adult. It's like
That's right.
if it's like adolescence, it's like I want both.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. It is both. Absolutely. And because there isn't that permission, right? One of the myths, like, well, a good mom loves all aspects of motherhood. So nobody
Yeah.
talks about that inner split, what Amy
Yes.
Taylor Kabaz calls her the inner split. It's like the you before you become a mom, and then the you after when you are a mom. And parts of us, yeah, didn't sign up to be a mom. They want the career, or they want the hobbies and to do the things. And to feel that inner tension is part of matrescence. And it's normal. It's not wrong or bad. And it doesn't mean you don't love your children and that you don't love being a mother,
Hmm.
right? It's both and.
Yeah.
The fact that nobody really talks about that, I think it's very isolating for moms. And so what happens is if your girlfriend's not talking about it, right? Where else do you get that permission to feel that inner tension. So what happens is without that language is we think, well, I suck at motherhood, or I guess I'm not a good mom
I'm not as good at it as other people. I'm not doing it as well. They seem to have
as the
it.
mom
They
on
don't, they seem to love
Instagram.
it. And there's parts I don't
Yeah,
like. And yeah, I
yeah.
also think this part, I don't want to go into the down rabbit hole, but I think that mothering, the aspects of mothering get
Hmm.
conflated with the aspects of homemaking a
Oh
lot.
yeah, yeah,
And we like make them the same, that
yeah.
homemaking and mothering are the same, or parenting. So anyhow, it's like I think there are a lot of women who like being moms, but not necessarily homemakers, or like, you know,
Yep.
taking care of, or don't like taking care of children, but like being a mom. Like, right. Like, don't like the
Yeah,
acts of mothering or
yeah.
the caregiving of like, I don't know, wiping bottoms or whatever. There's like also these tasks and skills and things like that, you know, you can love your kids and not like the job of raising them.
Well, that's it. I mean, the job of a mom in this day and age, especially like the
Yes.
intensive mother phase, it's an insane amount of skills, and I've struggled to feel like I fit that mold because I don't think I do fit that mold. I don't think, being a project manager is not something that I'm really that great with. And so I struggle with that. I drop a lot of balls. I miss appointments. I make all of these mistakes that for a long time, my perception was that, yeah, I'm not good at it. But I
Uh,
think what you're tapping on is exactly right, Darlin, and maybe there are moms who seem to be really good at it and maybe they work really hard. They have parts that have really taken it on because they think they have to and expend a ton of energy to like be this intensive mom. But I would suspect that inside, yeah, there's inner turmoil there that um, why is that what it takes in this day and age? And we know moms are totally depleted with trying to meet this mold and this idea. It's exhausting. And if we just need to look at the stats to know moms are drinking more, moms are depressed more, moms are anxious more. Like it's not a great situation. And we're just
no.
pushing them even more and more. So we need to shift that narrative. And yeah, that's part of why I want to shift it with you alongside you, darling.
Yeah, I know we're doing the work. Um,
Yeah.
I was thinking about when I really wrestled with like, who am I now? I think, and it was
Hmm.
when my youngest was going to kindergarten. Actually, he was in kinder and he was going to go to first. So he was in a kindergarten program that was half day, and then the next year was going to go to full day. And so then I have both kids in full day, and I didn't have a career at the time.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't know. I was like, who am I? Like, I'd lost myself in the previous 7 years of parenting and mothering. And I don't know. I didn't know what I liked anymore. I didn't know who I was. And I just keep connecting it to adolescence. Like, the big
Yeah.
job of adolescence is like creating an identity, and you get to try on different ones and
Hmm.
explore that. And then you kind of settle in, and you continue, just like adolescence is a transition from childhood to adulthood, but you continue to grow.
Yeah.
And I think all of us at certain point, and what I notice is it tends to be, as a coach and a mom observer, when that youngest goes to kinder, like right when you're entering in the elementary school years, maybe because it can be slightly less intense at that time, that you have
Hmm.
childcare handled for the most part.
Yeah,
And
you
then,
start to get space. Yeah,
yeah,
you
you
start
start
to
to
get
get some
space.
space. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then thinking about that, like, oh, I've been in a transition, just kind of owning I've been in matrescence, and I
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
now like redefining myself with, as a mom, as a woman, as a career person, like whatever it is that you, or maybe double down on homemaking. I have lots of friends that did, and I'm like, they are really satisfied. And I did not like it. I found it very boring and tedious. And um, for me, I was like, I can't go. I'm not, plus I'm very efficient. So like I have a high capacity. So I could like make dinner in 20 minutes, like at noon.
Mhm.
And people on the
Mhm.
podcast know this about me and they get annoyed. But I, but then I would be like, I'm done. I did all the mom things. I did all the doctor's appointments, and I just had more, I was
Yeah.
more interested in something else. And then I found this career that I have now. and made that okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like not making ourselves wrong for any of it, whatever it is, whoever we become, in that period.
I love that. And there's not enough of that though, just permission to be different or to have your own way,
Yeah.
right?
So let's talk about that because
Yeah,
that's the
sure.
myths,
Go,
right? Yeah.
go.
The reason
Yeah.
why we don't give ourselves permission is because of the myths. So, boy, did I love this section of your book on the good mother. I mean, I love your book. Like, it doesn't come out till January. People, you're gonna want it so bad. I want it so bad. I read like a advanced copy on my phone because it's not even in print yet. I can't. You guys are gonna love it. When it comes out, you have to come back on to
Would
like
love to.
talk
Yeah.
more about it, all of it. Um, so the good mother, the myths. Talk about what the good mother like in general, and then some of the myths around the good mother. I just love this section so much.
Sure. Well, just to first recognize that we have cultural myths. So we all absorbed, and so it changes throughout history. So these are ideas that can change throughout time, about what it means to be a good mother. So, what it was to be a good mother in the 50s, before the second wave of feminism was that homemaker and you stay at home. And the feminist movement worked really hard to say, well, we deserve to be in workspaces, and so that
But I
ideas
love that
shift.
that period of time, people were like taking quaaludes and like that's when
Oh,
women
Valium,
start to go
yeah,
to psychotherapy for the first
yeah,
time. Like lots of unhappiness when you're
yeah,
like, okay, we're going to define motherhood in this way, staying
yeah,
at home, homemaking, and then you just see like the rise of unhappiness, then leading to
yeah.
this, hey, maybe there's other ways. Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
and I think I just heard this recently that Valium in the 50s, 60s,
Hmm.
doctors would give moms Valium and it was called Mummy's Little Helper. Did you
Yes,
ever?
yeah,
Yeah.
mommy's dolls. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
like, come on now.
Yeah,
Um,
well, like let's look at the evidence of
well,
maybe it was, and that's happening today. I
yeah.
think it's
Well, it
another
happens today
intensive
too with
period
the,
of time of mothering, and then you see
yeah.
high rates of depression and loneliness and all of the other parts, the firefighters coming up and you know activated, and all of these maladaptive strategies because we're all like, this is shit. We can't keep this up. So that is what we can't keep up. What we've bought into is this myth of the good mother. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's impossible to meet. So that's the challenge is the idea. And I mean, my kids literally bought me a snow globe that said Supermom like several years ago. And I've since, painted a red line across it to remind myself, right? But we have this concept called supermom. And so we're actually expected to be superhuman right now. So we have all this research from the past 30 years of developmental psychology. So we have to be these, perfect parents and raise our kids to be amazing, well-rounded, adjusted children while feeding them organic food, while attending all of the school thing, the emails we get nowadays from schools. Previous generations, my mother didn't, there was no email. So it was like, when you were home,
There
you were
was
home.
no
When you were
way
at
to
school, you were
monitor
at
whether you
school.
had missing assignments or the grade
It's,
report. That it's also the constant feeling like you need to be monitoring your children's
yes, yeah.
academics. Like,
Academics and their social life
yeah, their
because
social life, play dates, organizing their
screen time is,
extracurricular. Hmm.
yeah. So this is like the tasks and the invisible.
And I am a part of the problem and I
Yeah,
fully own it. Like, hey, be super present with your children and heal your previous generational trauma wounds and also set really strong boundaries and don't be permissive. Like, podcasts are really terrible for motherhood, even though I have one. And because of
yeah,
this, because there are best practices. People feel overwhelmed. They're not sure what they're supposed to do. The
that's right.
previous blueprints of parenting don't work because we used authoritarianism and
Yeah,
fear.
yeah,
And everyone's like, but what do you do instead? So we want
right.
help because we want to do it better, different.
For sure.
And it's just layers and layers of pressure. And I think women are crumbling under
Yeah,
this pressure. It is
yeah.
like an avalanche, and it's not great out there. It's not great in these streets.
No, we got a lot that we're carrying on our
Yes,
shoulders. We've got a
we
lot
now
of,
have language, the
that's right.
mental load, and the division
Yeah.
of labor, all these things. Yep.
But it's creating this paradigm shift that you touched on. I'm glad you mentioned it, Darlin, because you're right. There's this massive parents wants a new way. And then what I found is that the challenge for us wanting a new way is we've absorbed the messages of what it means to be a good mom. So these ideas that a good mom is all self-sacrificing, that a good mom raises good kids. So this
Yeah,
shows
that's the biggest
we
one,
think
I
like,
think.
oh yeah, right? If our kid misbehaves in public, we feel like all the eyes are on us and they're all thinking we're a bad parent because our kid's dysregulated, right?
Or
So,
as they get older, teenagers, like if they are outside the norm, right?
yeah,
They're doing their identity work and they're kind of showing up in different ways, or they're brooding, or they're depressed, or they have, any sort of mental health issues, or
yeah,
they don't do well at school. Like if you're raising a neurodivergent kid and then you're looking at your children's the results of their behavior and making that about you, it is going to be very difficult for you to then feel good about yourself. Like
yeah.
anytime your kids misbehave, oh, that's because I'm a bad mom. Holy shit, you're going to be a bad mom all day, every day because kids misbehave because feelings drive behavior.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but then we use
Oh yeah.
these things as evidence of whether we're good or not good, and whether
Well,
we're
and we don't want, and so I think we want our kids to feel like they can be their more authentic self than past gen,
yes.
right? With getting rid of this authoritarian kids should be seen and not heard. And, we only want children who are happy. You're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to be sad or vulnerable. And so all that shunning, the younger parents, we don't want that anymore. We know the impact of it. We're all in therapy because, right?
Because of the
And
way we were raised. Yeah.
yeah, we want to raise our kids to feel safe. And it turns out what I've realized is when you raise your kids to feel safe with all of their feelings, it turns out they have a lot. They actually have a lot of feelings.
What?
So
They're complex humans with
they're
multiple
complex
thoughts
human
and
beings
feelings?
with a range of emotions, which is wonderful. And for us, though, if we grew up in an environment where we weren't allowed to experience that range of emotion or express it in a safe way, our parts have taken on to suppress our emotions, right? So our inner protective system is the one that we're still running with. And so this is where what I think makes it extremely hard. We want to be conscious parents and we know our values are aligned. Like those are good things to want to be a better parent and learn the things to do it right. But I feel like what gets harder is just our own inner work that's still going to get activated and still going to come up in those moments. And so we kind of have to, I don't want to say untrain ourselves. I think we heal, we unburden them. But the system, anyways, whatever language we use, like we need a software update or whatever metaphor lands for you.
Yeah, I've heard blueprint, mind
Yeah,
map. Yeah. Uh-huh.
there's a lot of them right now. But it's like that's why it's so hard. And I just want moms to know it's not you. Like it's hard because this is kind of a generational shift of
Mhm.
us cycle breaking, right? Really getting messy. Feels messy and it's an opportunity. And I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic. Like I landed where I did for a reason to do this work because it does make me more hopeful though for the future generation. That our kids are growing up with parents who are doing their own work and their own healing, and that it will be better, different, and better for them because we're
Yeah.
doing it and dispelling these myths. And
And I think when we're recognizing that we're doing this hard work, this hard emotional work, and raising kids in an emotionally healthy environment,
Mhm.
that itself is so taxing. Like it takes a lot of effort and emotional regulation on our part and a lot of simplicity, really, and rhythms that work for us so that we aren't running around all day, every day, doing all the things with all the kids and volunteering
Yeah,
for all the stuff. But then because there's like the social pressure to look and perform a certain way, and then there's this internal value system that we really do want to show up as in a calm way, they kind of I think that they're counter again. They can't oppose each other,
yeah,
especially for in seasons where we're in a hyper healing state, or we're really trying to work through our own calm or like repair in our family,
yeah.
while still meeting these myths of, loving motherhood and sacrificing for your kids and doing it all on your own, and having your kids look well, perform well, be good. It I don't know. You can, I don't know. You can do all of them, but it's like when you're in a, I noticed like for myself, when I've done deeper repair work inside of myself and mm, making my family work better for me and for them so that I'm not so activated all the time. Like when I de stress our lives,
Mhm.
then that means that we have to not necessarily perform like the world thinks that we should perform. An example would be club sports, okay,
Mhm.
travel sports.
Yeah.
So for my family, I needed to have my family home on the weekends as a time to repair my relationship with my husband, for him to rest, for them to see him. He worked away from the house a lot of hours.
Mhm.
And we just decided we weren't going to do it, even though we had athletic kids. Da, 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 da. And
Mhm.
that maybe has caused social, like, like held them back possibly socially or something, or like they didn't have as much opportunity to be on the teams and know the kids and go to the things and da, da, da.
Mhm.
But in our inside of our four walls, it was emotionally healthy. And had I
Mhm.
not chosen to prioritize emotional health, we may have done all those things, but I may have created damage because I would have been reactive and working from my manager parts and
Yeah.
protector parts. So I think I just want to name that tension.
Mm.
And I don't know if you experience it or not. Then it's sometimes like we would start to be smooth, and I'm like, okay, we can add something. And then it was like, okay, this is an addition I can bring back into our life.
Mhm.
Um, but I was so careful to like manage my own nervous system and my own
Yeah.
family rhythm
Yeah.
that meant saying no to stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's radical, courageous work because it is choosing to tune into our own as a mom, right? Our own nervous system and our own emotional needs. We're kind of the anchor of the family, and we're going to resonate kind of calmer, more loving energy that's going to feed that connection. It's contagious, right? When we're well, uh, everyone in the home can feel more grounded and centered. And I think making choices to value connection over achievement are really the bet. I mean, I'm just going to say, I think it's a great, I'm just going to say, I think it's a great decision. And people might decide differently and for different reasons. So
Yep.
I acknowledge that too. But what I hear in your experience, Derlin, is that and also we never know, right? So sometimes it's like we can always doubt as a mom, we can always wonder, right? The little doubting part that's like, well, did I do the right thing? Did I push too
Oh,
hard?
when
Did I
you get to this
think?
stage that I'm at, it's
Yeah.
like this life review thing, and it's terrible. Don't do it.
Oh,
That's just
don't
like,
do
yep.
life review. I'll tap out of that one then if I can. Yeah, I'm not quite there. I'm still in the adolescence. But these are decisions. I think it takes courage because it can really feel like you are going against everyone. I'm in a community I live in is very high achieving, very push, push, push. I'm like, my son wants to play house league and they barely can scrape up enough players because they're all in the clubs and they're all in and I see them absorb the stress of it, that they're at a very young age worried about college. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what? Like, I never had to grow up with that thought in my head that am I stressed in grade 6 about getting into college? Like, that's what's in the zeitgeist where I live. And
Oh
I don't
yeah.
think that's healthy. And I think we're starting to learn, and I'm seeing it a little more online around the impacts of high achieving. Right? High
Yeah.
achievement is really just a manager part. We're pushing these parts. It's been reinforced in society because if you can get accolades and make money, right, then that's one of those dupes
You're
about
good. You
society
check
that,
box the
yeah, you get the
good. Yes.
you're a
Yeah.
good guy, you're a good woman, you're
Hmm.
successful because but that's just a really well-functioning manager part. That's
Hmm.
oftentimes not authentically who we are. And we know that that can lead to lots of mental health issues, ulcers, and physical issues. We know that.
Yeah.
So I think the way forward is going to be starting to be more like what you organically experienced, Darlene, which is to like, what do we need to keep our nervous systems calm?
Yeah.
And that's the antidote to this overstressed, population and
Hmm.
that people are struggling with.
Yeah. And it is, it's possible. And it does take that courage, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think when I think about priorities, it's helpful to like, what is it that, what am I all about? What are my goals? And my business goal is to heal the next generation in advance. And when I think about that, it's because I would love to see a generation who in their 20s and 30s isn't healing those childhood wounds, isn't activated those firefighter and manager parts that are just kind of on fire, coping, achieving. It's like, what if everyone was self led using the IFS language? And if I could raise kids who were able to manage their emotions, I felt like they could achieve
Hmm.
socially, emotionally, academically, financially, and it would be more authentic, more within their own authentic self. It's still
Yeah,
playing out. They're 19 and 21. We're still, jury's out. But I think for the most part, emotionally, they're doing pretty good.
that's
Um,
great.
and that, but it was, I think it's hard in this modern world where you have a lot of information and there's a lot of expectations and like best thing you could do is like definitely I've gone through like should my child start a non-for-profit in middle school so that they can go to Stanford? I'm like, I don't, I don't, I don't. Let's just talk about like, are they self-conscious about their zit? Like, like the scope is so, different. And it's like when you are striving to meet the requirements of the world, whether super mom or achievement or whatever it is, what are some of the like blowback that happens? Like you kind of started to talk about it, like, physically, mentally, emotionally. Like what are
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how does it hurt us if we buy into all this?
I mean, so many ways, just a couple that pop in. I mean, one is it keeps taking us away from ourselves, right? As long as we are chasing what we think society tells us is going to make us happy. I mean, this is the phenomenon of the midlife crisis, right? It's like, okay, now I'm midlife and I did all the things that I was taught are going to make me happy and I'm not. So the longer we get lost listening to these ideas of achieving and performing and without just actually valuing people for who they are. They have to earn that love, respect, and worth. We're lost. So that's one thought. And the second is that for me is like, so I sort of also hearing your question, Darlene, like, what if we just, live from manager parts?
Mm-hmm.
And and I once heard Gabor Mate talk about that for himself because he what very much was a self-disclosed workaholic. And he said, now when I think of me, of that little, that younger me, he said, I cry and I weep for his lack of joy because he
Mm,
was so busy working hard that it takes us out of our present moments. And in the present moment is where we can laugh, where we can, we have a shared laugh. What's better than that?
yeah.
We experience in the here and the now. The managers that are aiming for the goals, and I have a part that's very goal driven.
Oh, me too. She's called
Yeah,
iPad Girl.
for
What's
sure.
yours
And
called?
look what you've, mine's my grad student part.
My iPad girl, she's got like an iPad and she's like in charge of everybody and she's like always just like doopa 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 doopa. Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
And
fantastic.
then people who listen to the podcast like also fix it, fuck it. So I think a fix it is manager, and then firefighters are fuck it's. And
Right.
so I less and less, but that fix it energy of like
Yes.
get it done. What's happening? Let's come on. That's that manager
Yeah.
part. That is, I
Like go,
think
go, go. Yeah.
someone on my group call recently they called it managerial instead
Oh
of
yeah, I
manage.
heard momagers. My editor was telling me that that's what her and her friends are calling it, or momagers.
Yeah, yeah.
I
She's like, when you
love
get
it.
into that, like,
Yeah.
mom managerial mode, and we're like, momagerial. Yeah. And it made us chuckle. Like, yeah, it's like that. But, and there is a requirement of that part in motherhood. And you do
Yes,
talk about that in
that's
the
right.
book. Like, it's really helpful because there is a lot going on. You kind of,
Yeah.
even when they're little, you're like, when did you last eat? Have you pooped? Da, da, da. All the way through, like, what, okay, if you're going to soccer tonight, and you have the birthday party on Saturday, you're going to have to do that now. Like, you kind of
Yeah.
are the schedule, calendar, task, all of that. Um, And some people are terrible at it. And some moms feel like absolute shit because they're not good at that part. Like they
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
those skills. Um, do less. That's all.
Yes.
Hint, hint.
Yeah.
Um, so the parts aren't wrong. Like Dick Schwartz says, no bad parts. But I think when we lead from those parts, that's when we start to
When
miss
they
out.
get too extreme, when we're
Yeah.
living too much from them, right? So I think of my mom was, her manager part was very concerned with tidy cleanliness to the point that we all made jokes about it. And I think a lot of families have a person in their family who was, she wasn't kind of OCD, but she was so focused on the house being clean and tidy.
Yeah.
And to the point that she would nag, and it was just like she was miserable because the house wasn't clean. And I mean, that's one of the memories I carry. Is like, oh, I remember my mom when she was always like, I literally could hear her voice and like yelling at us about our shoes in the hallway, you
Yeah.
know? So for me, although I like a tidy home, I learned very early on in motherhood that I have to drop my bar real low because there's no way I'm cleaning up after everybody that so that I can feel that sense of like, oh yes, all the
Or
time.
nagging everybody. Or
Yeah, I
like,
don't
yeah.
want that. I don't want that for me, and I don't want that for my family members to experience that from my part that just wants to control them, and it's not, there's a time and a place. So I still have that part, right? I like things tidy but it's when they're just a little too intense of that energy. So yes, we need those manager parts for sure. For me, when I realized I need to get back into therapy, it's time to really do some work here. I just knew I didn't. I know we have a window with our kids, as you've touched on, Darlene, in your own experience. There's a window and then they'll be gone. And I just knew I didn't want that. I knew that day would come really soon. And I didn't want to look back with regret. And I think I probably will on some level anyways. Probably we all do when we do that life review. We can torture ourselves in that way. But I just also knew, okay, I'm in the here and the now. And the sooner that I look at my stuff and, prioritize myself to look at my stuff, because we have to do that. We have to make ourselves matter to do our own work. Then the fewer regrets I'm going to have
Yeah.
down the road. And so for me, it was like whether it's my, high intense manager parts or my firefighter parts that are, you know, taking me out of my present moments with my kids. I just knew that that would be the one greatest regret that I'll have. Like, and I know I probably still will, because there are times I'll watch TV and not hang out with my kids because that's what I want to do. So I'm not saying like we have to always be
And
at
that's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I think we are gearing a little too like have all these present moments with your children.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little
Oh,
bit
like you're
intense. We just
human.
do everything intense. Everything is
Yeah,
like
everything.
out of like a little bit more than is necessary. Every bit of advice, people are like, I need to validate their feelings. I'm like,
Yeah.
Mo most of the time ish, like
Yeah.
51% of the time. I don't know. It's okay.
Well, I heard I mean there's a data I tried to confirm it, so I won't mention it other than I heard 30%. If
Yeah,
you're
I'm always joking around. I'm
cycle.
like 1%. I don't know. It's like it's okay. You get to be a person, your kids get to be
Yes.
people, and and we had someone on to talk about attachment, and she's like, it's a robust system.
Yeah.
It's not as fragile as we make it out to be. And I think family is pretty robust as well. And like relationships are robust and they're very difficult to break. Um, and I think you talked about when we let these parts come out, take over in your book, you talk about the critic, the
Hmm.
perfect mother, the perfectionist, the fear, worry part, the guilt and shame, and then that mom rage. And I
Hmm.
think when we are trying to live like the world tells us to live and we're using these benchmarks and these standards to measure up against,
Yeah.
we're going to be critical. If we have the expectation of perfect, we're going to be critical. Then we're going to feel guilt and shame about ourselves. But then we don't know what to do with that. So it's got to be also our kids. We're going to feel rageful that they exist sometimes. And
Hmm.
and we're always worried like, are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? And we're going to mess them up. Either we're going to emotionally mess them up or they're not going to be a successful. And it just spin.
Hmm.
And to get out of that spin and heal, it's like you said, we have to prioritize our self. And I think we don't know what that means, but really it's like maybe prioritizing our own emotional well being.
Hmm.
because I think sometimes it's like massages and getting your nails done and whatever. I don't know. That's not what we're all talking about. Like that can be helpful if you need a little break or whatever. But the self-care is really about your own prioritizing your own internal self, like your self
Yeah,
IFS self
yeah,
care. Hmm.
yeah. And the care for the parts that are so exhausted because they're doing all the things to meet these standards of what it means to be a good mom, and they're never getting there because it's like a hologram, right?
Yes, right. It's not possible.
Yeah,
And then you're always just going to feel like crap.
yeah.
And so I want to end this episode on the concept of the good enough mother.
Hmm.
I feel like that can be its own book. If we could all just adopt a philosophy around the good enough mother,
Hmm.
it would heal a lot of these myths and the pain and the stress and the overwhelm. So, how would you define the good enough mother?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was defined by Dr. Winnicott, who studied mothers and their toddlers and their children, and he came up with this phrase. I can't remember what year. Um, And he concluded based on his research that actually moms that fail their children in reasonable and expected ways, so that's that's important there, but fail them not attuned to them 110%, but 30%,
Mhm.
40%,
Mhm.
then that actually served the child because the child was sort of given a little moment of adversity and developed resilience through that. So that's the idea. We don't need to be perfect. And in fact, I would say, there's this that gentle parenting movement, and I'm not pointing fingers specifically at that, but there has been a swing of parents, myself included. So I'll just speak for myself, where I didn't want my kids to, I wanted every emotion validated. Every time they spoke, my husband and I would stop speaking because, well, they needed to know that they mattered. And we didn't realize that suddenly we didn't matter. That we
Yeah,
swung
God.
that pendulum from like we were totally emotionally neglected to kind of like we weren't given that priority. We swung it so far as what happens, right? We like overcompensated and then suddenly we realized, wow, it sucks that you and I can't have a conversation without our kids interrupting us. And we
It's so
realized
funny. I'm
we
laughing because
taught
it's
them
like
to do
we
that.
grew
Like,
up in a generation where your feelings don't matter as a
yeah,
child. Then we raise kids. That's so funny. Where you're
yeah,
like, now my feelings still don't matter because my kids' feelings
yeah,
matter more.
that's right. It's great.
Mhm. It's like we just keep wounding ourselves
Yeah.
almost like it's like a trauma response. It's pretty funny.
In some ways it is, right? It's
Yes.
like we're never going to do well from just swinging the opposite. We need to recalibrate and
Yeah.
like get conscious and figure out what that deeper need is, right? With inside me. So that's one of the ways it shows up. But
Mhm.
to
I
be
wonder
good
if I could
enough,
coin a new word like
yeah,
instead of parenting, like familying. Like,
yeah.
like I
Family,
don't know, because we're so focused on our children and what they need, and we're not like focused on the family and like what it needs as its
yeah,
own entity. Because then I'm a part of the family, you are a part of the family. I don't know. We can't, we can't. We're not able really to.
yeah,
uh we want to over attune to our kids and we're under attuning to ourselves, and like how to find that balance would be,
yeah.
and I think adopting this good enough mother philosophy would be, it's just lowering the bar just enough where there's some room for you in there. And
Well, I mean, I much prefer, it's like I would invite, listeners to just think, okay, think of the term a good enough mother and notice how that feels in your body. And then and then hold the term super mom and notice how that feels in your body. You know, I mean, I
yeah,
think,
which one do you
which
want to
one feels
do?
better
Yeah.
in your body?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which one feels better? We think we know. We think we know. Yeah. Yeah. I just think all of us want to be good moms. And like a couple of years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, I just decided I was one.
I love it.
I just was like, I'm a
Yeah,
great mom.
yeah,
I don't know. I just decided not to make that a question anymore that I
yeah,
spent any time wondering. And you can do it too. It's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good enough. I'm good. I'm a good mom. Yeah,
yeah,
you're a good mom, Angele. We
yeah.
are.
Yes, we are. I love that. Just what would it feel like to just decide I'm no longer going to expend, what is it you just said? I don't even question it. It's no longer a question anymore. I
Mm-mm.
love that. What
Don't ask
freedom
it.
in that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, the assumption is that I am, and I'm doing it pretty well. And then I don't feel so drained by it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So,
Love it.
everyone listening, try those thoughts on. I'm a good enough mother and see how it feels in your body. And yeah, we believe it, right? We believe that anyone who's asking the question is probably the answer is yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone listening to your podcast, they are. I mean, the people reading the books, reading the parenting
Mhm.
books, everyone's trying their best,
Yeah,
and this idea that we have to be perfect. It doesn't serve us and it doesn't serve our kids because
it
they're
doesn't.
human too.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
more that we can have compassion for ourselves, we're modeling it to them. So I try and remember that when if my own inner critic gets a little agitated, then I just remember that. Like me, a mom loving herself is the greatest gift she can give her kids.
So true. So you guys are thinking to yourself, gosh, I want more of this conversation. And we have good news is because next week we're going to continue this conversation with Dr. Angele Close and have more topics and conversation about internal family system, self-led mom, and putting some of the things we talked about today in practice. So have a good week. And yeah, you can say bye. We'll see you next week, both of us.
See you next week. Thanks, Sterling.
Hey, Mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that again at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful practical parenting strategies just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.